Alright guys, are you ready to see some absolute top tier 1v1 ranked gameplay between a Major General and a Brigadier General here on Punch Bowl, one of, well, maybe the most annoying maps in the entirety of the rank pool to many people. We have the just pinnacle of skill here, two of the top players in the entire game, and are you ready for this? Because Feanor is doing, it looks like, a relatively standard opener. He's got some stuff into Delta, he's got some stuff into Fox, some into Bravo, maybe even a little bit too spread out for my liking, but I mean, who am I to argue with a Major General here playing DGC mechanized, and yeah, it's a Hilo Rush. It's a Hilo Rush. Oh my goodness, it's so bad when, privates or corporals or sergeants or sergeant majors, even captains do this sort of thing, but a Brigadier General, they might actually know enough to do it in a really scary way. Like, against a true Hilo Rush, there are very few things that can save you. And so, yeah, I just had to cast this one. It was sent to me with that exact title of Amazing Top Tier Gameplay. And, yeah, well, I mean, who am I to disagree? I mean, we've already had a Seed plane come out, a Rocket Pod plane come out, targeting the GaMEpLAy 2s, looking for Feanor's anti-air, as Red here is just trying to eliminate all of his tools to deal with all of these helicopters. And one thing I want to point out, actually, this is really fun to watch. The Red 4 player, this CV infantry didn't start in a Scredget. The VDV-90 did. At the start, that 2nd Command Infantry was unloaded from a KA-29TB, which is now over here, and the VDV-90 was also unloaded, and they put the Command Infantry into the Scredget. That way they could use the KA-29TB in this initial Hilo Rush as well, without risking Command Infantry that they then drove down later on. And I was just sitting there going, dude, I mean, okay, dedication to a form, I understand. It is kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, it's just, goodness gracious. Use your powers for good, not evil, Brigadier General. Come on. We can do better than this. So, what is the crucial thing for Feanor to do here? Right now, he needs to stop all these helicopters. That means keeping his anti-air alive. And that can be really challenging, because there's going to be Seed floating around here quite often, and, I mean, turning on that radar gun, maybe a possibility of getting it if the 2nd anti-air missile would hit, but not quite. And then lots of times people won't have base defense if they're doing this sort of thing, so getting the Core Mariner right into the base could very well work. And actually, right here, I would have expected it too, except the CV infantry is immediately moved, which is a nice response from Red, nice response time there from this Hilo Rusher. And then the fight with VDV-90, this should still go in favor of the Core Mariner as well. The reason it doesn't is, well, you're about to see it right here, so let me just let that happen. Boom. Down to 7. And more importantly, panicked and stunned. And then, yeah, just gun run. I don't know why, like, this is actually a farther gap than you might think. Infantry doesn't really like to pop between these unless you're very precise with your click. So just careful with that sort of movement. But yeah, Core Mariner could well have taken that, but unfortunately more air power and everything like that. And Feanor's response here is actually really nice in terms of what he's doing with the rest of this, because the way for him to lose the game is for his home zone to be countercapped for too long. He, can't call in anything else. He can't call in anything for the endless tide of helicopters, which is now coming back over. And in case you're wondering, why the delay, right? So all the helicopters were over here, then they pulled back. Now they're going back again. Part of the reason for the delay was the presence of those Gepards, which are now pretty much gone. Well, the one over there is, the Roland is gone. This Gepard is isolated and moving, and, even GaMEpLAy 2, it can't deal with all of this at once. That's the whole point of a helicopter rush, is that you overwhelm a reasonable amount of anti-air. And so you get into this sort of trade of, well, okay, if you're going to overwhelm a reasonable amount of anti-air, then maybe I should bring more than that. And the second you bring more than that, now you can't fight on the field. So it's a really toxic thing in terms of gameplay and the ranked environment or 1v1 environment, because you basically psych people out into, they either prepare for a Hilo Rush, in which case they lose the game, or they don't prepare for the Hilo Rush, in which case they lose the game. And so I really do despise it. It's one of my least favorite things, short of actually just cheating. But Feanor has been countercapped. You'll notice the Staff Einheit is still here, and that means, of course, that Red 4 has to have command infantry or a vehicle somewhere here. We, of course, know that it's in the Scredget, but Feanor wouldn't have known this at the time, so we saw a couple things drive in, but that doesn't say for certain if it's a vehicle or if it's an infantry. You could probably guess it's an infantry, but it would just be on an uneducated guess, shall we say. So over here, the initial deployment that went over to the 2 pointers in Delta is now arriving in Alpha, having driven all the way through here because Red doesn't care. The +2 zones mean nothing to Red for this at all. And while these helicopters are getting a little bit too close to Martyr 2s, this Martyr 2 probably won Feanor the game, just as a side note. Probably won in the entire game, because that thing has killed, I think, a couple of helicopters. We'll see later on. But there's more Corps Mariner 95 here. They are getting into the towns, and yeah, I mean, these guys, it's a little unfortunate they got booped by the VDV-90, but this at least gets Feanor the kill. And so now, as a result of the Hilo Rush, as a result of insufficient base defense, because the game shouldn't have kept going at this point, because most people wouldn't expect a defense like Feanor's to actually hold out, and it barely did, let me say that, it barely did. Well, now neither player has a spawn, so it's not exactly a 10v10 tactical, we'll call this a 1v1 tactical, accidental 1v1 tactical in ranked gameplay, and it's just like, I've been saying this a little more often recently. I think, really, in competitive Wargame, you can, if it's a friendly match, have everyone come out of it having had a good time. I had a really fun game, 2v2, with some friends last night, just amazing fun, and it actually turned out to be a tie. But in ranked, I often feel like maximum one person has a good time, and I put it that way very intentionally, maximum one person, because it's not a guarantee, and I gotta say, I really doubt either person came out of this having a good time, and I think one thing that we forget oftentimes in this is, even ranked, it's a game. Have a good time. Play in a way that when you get the win, it's you know, it's this thing where, ah, man, that was really a lot of fun. I did very well. I, had some good plays. I had some bad plays. My strategy worked. It was really satisfying from that respect as well. But here, I mean, even if one of these players, one of them has to win eventually or draw, I just don't think either player here is having a good time, and I think that's kind of missing the point. And to me, that's what drives a lot of, and this is going to sound a little preachy, so I do apologize, but to me, I think that's what drives a lot of, like, Hilo Rush or Hilo Cheese or things like that. And, I'm a sneaker. I sneak a lot. But to me, that's fun. I like seeing if I can get something around in the back lines, and it's not my entire strategy, it's just, it's infiltration. It's, defend your base. This degree of it, though, I think sort of forgets that. I think it sort of forgets that we're supposed to have a fun time with this, and, I can't imagine any new player who would have queued in against this Brig, which admittedly would have taken a little while, and, not a ton of new players play ranked a lot, but a surprising number do, because they don't really, they go, oh, well, it's just ranked, I'll just play a game or two, and, I might win one, I might win two, and they end up being down like 14, 50 elo for a long time, but, I can't imagine any new player doing this and having a good time and wanting to play ranked again. And that's really depressing to me because, I'm running a tourney right now with the explicit intention of pairing new and more experienced players together to, help them learn a bit more and become better players and help the scene of this really old game that we all really enjoy. And so, yeah, I don't know. This is top tier gameplay, of course. I'm sure you'll all agree with that, right? So the way that it ends actually is kind of interesting. So Red doesn't have any ability to spawn any more units as well. That makes this VP their last buy, which is sort of fitting, to be honest. And because of that, there's really nothing on the ground here. So the Martyr 2 taking out a couple of helicopters, the infantry in the woods taking out a couple of helicopters, to just flying a little too close here for Red, I think has really cost them the game, because, well, there's not much left. There's P-Grand 90, Stutes, more Stutes, YPRs, 13 FL12 on 1 strength, the Martyr 2 here. But the Red 4 Factoria are out of ATGMs. A single VP only has 4 ATGMs. It's not a miracle worker against armor, because just, it's only so many rocket pods, only so many ATGMs, and with that, Feanor is going to be able to get the command infantry and call it a day. So, you know what, Feanor? I'm sorry you had to put up with this. I've really been enjoying watching you play ranked on my Discord lately. It's been a really nice time. And there we go, top tier gameplay. I do also want to comment that at the time of recording, Feanor is the 17th ranked overall. He's a lieutenant general now, 2180 rating, insanely good player, and he nearly lost to this strategy as well, just because it's just, it's so frustrating. So, it's nice to see you're up at rank 17, my friend. Alright, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you all for hanging around, and we'll see you again real soon.